The little black girl said, "Dad, that waitress looks like Mom." He turned and froze. His wife was dead. "Dad, that girl looks like Mom," Emma said, pointing her tiny finger at the waitress across the diner. James chuckled without looking, cutting the waffle into smaller pieces for his 6-year-old daughter. "Emma, don't point at people, it's rude." The words caught in his throat when he finally looked up. The world stopped. The fork he held clattered onto the table, a metallic chime echoing for an eternity. There, less than 30 feet away, was a woman identical to Laura. The same radiant smile, the same way she tucked her curly hair behind her ear, the same eyes that had closed forever 3 years ago. Impossible. James had held Laura's cold body in the morgue. He'd wept over her casket. He'd scattered her ashes at the lake where they met in college. His wife was dead, but this woman was her. Her wedding ring, the one he'd slipped on her finger a decade ago, glinted on the waitress's hand, a detail that made his heart lurch. "Dad, are you crying?" Emma's voice snapped him back. James hadn't even noticed the tears streaming down his face. The waitress approached their table, notepad in hand, no recognition in her eyes. "Can I get you anything else?" she asked, her voice so familiar that James felt the air leave his lungs. "Laura!" The name slipped out like a desperate plea. The waitress frowned, confused. "I'm Sophie. Sorry, have we met before?" James couldn't speak. How could he explain? How could he say, "You're identical to my dead wife," without sounding insane? He noticed a faint scar on her wrist, one he knew from a cooking accident years ago, now barely visible but unmistakable. "You're the same," Emma said with a child's blunt honesty. "Like my mom in the pictures." Sophie glanced at the girl, then at James, discomfort clear on her face. "I must have a common face," she said politely, eager to end the conversation. "I'll get more juice for the little one." She hurried away, casting wary glances over her shoulder. James felt the world spin. For 3 years, since the phone call at 2:47 a.m. changed his life forever, he'd accepted that the car accident took Laura. Dr. Hinson had explained the injuries were too severe, she hadn't suffered, the closed casket was necessary due to the body's condition. But now, "Dad, why is Mom pretending she doesn't know us?" Emma's question hit James like a punch. He knew he should correct her, explain that this woman wasn't her mother, that people could look alike, but the words wouldn't come because deep down, something was wrong. Terribly wrong. James grabbed his phone with shaking hands and pulled up his favorite photo of Laura. Same face, same smile, same tiny details not even an identical twin could replicate so perfectly. The faint birthmark near her right eyebrow, the unique shape of her chin. A sudden flashback hit him. Dr. Henson insisting he not see the full body, only the face. Briefly, the dimly lit morgue, the rushed cremation paperwork. He recalled the strange hesitation in Henson's voice when he asked about the crash, a fleeting glance that now felt like a lie. The hospital staff blocking him when he tried to visit the crash site. James looked at Sophie, now serving another table. With every movement, every gesture, the feeling that he was seeing Laura grew, becoming a terrible certainty. The details of the alleged accident were always vague. A car hitting a tree during a storm, no witnesses, a road Laura rarely took, and strangest of all, the body was rushed to Central Hospital, where Dr. Henson, who treated Laura months earlier for a rare illness, was conveniently on duty. "Let's go, Emma," James said, leaving a $50.00 bill on the table. "We have to leave." "But Dad, Mom." "It's not Mom's, sweetheart," he said, though his voice betrayed his doubt. "We're going home now." James took his daughter's hand and left the diner, not before noting the name of the place and its address in Chicago. As they walked to the car, his mind raced. If there was even the slightest chance. He buckled Emma into her car seat, the autopilot taking over as his mind spun with increasingly improbable theories. It was madness to think Laura could be alive, madness to question what he'd seen in the morgue. But what if? James started the car, hands still trembling. The radio played a song Laura loved, like a sign, as if the universe was confirming some things couldn't be coincidences. The song was their first dance at their wedding, a memory so vivid it felt like a message from her. Driving home, one certainty formed in James's mind. He wouldn't rest until he uncovered the truth, because now, for the first time in 3 years, he felt something he thought he'd lost forever: hope. Have you ever had that gut feeling something was off, even when all evidence said otherwise? If this family mystery story tugged at your heart, don't forget to subscribe for more on how a simple Sunday brunch would transform the life of a man who thought he'd lost everything. That night, James couldn't sleep. In his dark home office, he examined dozens of Laura's photos for the 1,000th time, comparing every detail to the waitress burned in his mind. On the wall, he started a mind map: news clippings about the accident, medical reports, life insurance documents that paid out a hefty sum after Laura's death. Everything seemed normal, but now screamed inconsistency. He found a hidden note in Laura's old journal, written weeks before the accident. Henson's questions feel wrong. I don't trust him. Are you crazy, Jim? Mark, his brother-in-law and best friend, said, rushing over after a frantic 2 a.m. text. You're saying Laura, my sister, is alive, serving tables in a diner? After we cremated her? James showed him a sneaky photo he'd taken at the diner. Look at this and tell me it's not her. Mark took the phone, skepticism fading from his face. My God, the resemblances. It's not a resemblance, Mark. It's her? The next day, James dropped Emma at school and headed to the local precinct. Detective Carter, a bureaucratic man with a bored expression, listened with growing impatience. Let's recap, Mr. Wilson. Your wife died 3 years ago in a car accident. Body identified, cremated. Now you think she's alive because you saw a lookalike serving waffles? The detective closed his file. Grief's tough, sir. I've seen people swear they've seen loved ones and strangers. He has the same birthmark, James insisted. Same speech, same. He pulled out a photo of the ring on Sophie's hand, its unique engraving clear. This was Laura's. How does a stranger have it? Mr. Wilson, if your wife was declared dead and cremated, their certificates, autopsies, legal documentation, I can't open a case based on this. James left the precinct feeling defeated but didn't give up. He started visiting the diner discreetly, always sitting far, watching Sophie. She worked 5 days a week, always arrived by bus, and seemed to lead a routine life. No hint of who she really was. On one visit, James noticed something disturbing. A suited man watching Sophie from outside. The man jotted notes as she left her shift, then vanished in a black sedan. James snapped a photo of the license plate. With the plate in hand, James called the one person who could help without questions: Ethan, a former PI who owed him a favor from when James, a forensic accountant, cleared his name years ago. Dr. Henry Henson, Ethan said 3 days later, handing James a folder. The car's registered to Henson's clinic. Guess what? He's the same doctor who signed your wife's death certificate. The same man who insisted on quick cremation. The one who treated Laura months before the accident for a rare autoimmune condition that sometimes caused confusion. There's more, Ethan continued. Henson's clinic goes beyond standard medicine. They've got a neurocognitive research wing funded by a private foundation. Couldn't access the files, but they're studying something about traumatic memory reconfiguration. James felt a chill down his spine. You think? I don't think anything, just saying it's too weird for coincidence. Ethan handed over a blurry photo from the clinic's security feed showing Laura, or Sophie, entering months after her supposed death. At home, James found something unsettling. Digging through Laura's old medical files, he discovered she'd signed a form authorizing Dr. Henson to enroll her in a clinical study if her condition worsened. Her signature looked off, hesitant. Laura never mentioned it. Dad, I found this in Mom's album, Emma said one night, holding a forgotten business card tucked between pages. It was from Henson's clinic, a handwritten number on the back, not Laura's handwriting. James decided to confront Dr. Henson directly. He booked an appointment under a false name, but at the clinic's reception, he learned the doctor had canceled all appointments and left town unexpectedly. Through a cracked office door, James saw a framed photo on the wall, Henson receiving an award next to a man he recognized instantly, the diner's owner. Back in the car, James got an alarming call from Ethan. Jim? Dug more on Sophie. She popped up out of nowhere 3 years ago. No history, no family, no past, apartment leased by the foundation, a subsidiary of the company funding Henson's clinic, and weirder, found pharmacy correspondence. She's on a cocktail of experimental drugs. That night, James made a decision. He couldn't trust the authorities. Laura's paperwork was too perfect. The link between Henson, the diner, and Sophie was undeniable. The doctor was monitoring her, administering some experimental treatment. Careful not to be seen, James started tailing Sophie after work. She took the bus, as usual, but got off at a different stop, near a discreet clinic with the foundation's logo. She walked through glass doors, greeted by a nurse who led her inside like it was routine. Through the window, James saw Sophie sit in a waiting room, her face relaxed, trusting, unafraid. Clearly a regular visit. The confirmation he needed was there. His wife didn't die in that accident. Something far more sinister had happened. As Sophie vanished inside the clinic, James pulled his phone from his pocket. In a password-protected folder, he'd meticulously gathered evidence. Photos of Henson's car at the diner, the suspicious consent form, Sophie's discarded prescriptions, the murky link to the foundation. He'd added a voicemail Laura left him days before the crash, her tone uneasy. James, I think someone's watching me. What started as a wild hunch had become a full investigation, and James had a growing sense that not only was Laura in danger, but this might be part of a much bigger scheme. The puzzle pieces were nearly all there, but the motive was missing. Why would someone abduct a sick woman, fake her death, and keep her working as a waitress in plain sight? One certainty remained. While Dr. Henson thought he was monitoring a docile, forgetful patient, he had no idea he was being watched by a man determined to reclaim what was stolen. And James Wilson had learned one thing about himself in recent weeks. When it came to Laura and Emma, there were no limits to what he'd do. Across the street, the clinic's lights began shutting off one by one. The next night marked the end of meticulous surveillance. James adjusted his binoculars, watching the foundation's entrance. Mark was in the passenger seat, Ethan prepping gear in the back. "You sure about this?" Mark asked nervously. "It's Laura," James said. "Tonight we bring her home." The plan was simple. James had learned that every Thursday, Sophie, Laura, had a special session with Dr. Henson. As expected, a black sedan pulled up at 7:45 p.m. Henson stepped out, glancing around nervously before entering the clinic. They waited 10 minutes, enough time for Henson to start the procedure, then moved. A swipe card, obtained from a horrified nurse shown James as evidence, worked perfectly. The nurse had revealed there are others, not just your wife. At the end of the dimly lit hallway, blue light seeped under a door. James signaled Ethan to start recording. "We're making remarkable progress with Subject 7, Henson was saying. "Memory fully reconfigured, prior identity suppressed, conditioning so stable she willingly takes the medication without question. And the side effects?" a second voice asked. Conrad, the diner owner. "Minimal compared to what we've achieved. A procedure that can erase trauma, reconfigure identities. The military applications alone are worth billions." James felt sick. Laura, reduced to Subject 7. "Her husband?" Conrad asked. Still digging. "Let him. Who'd believe him, a grieving man seeing his dead wife's face in strangers? Classic!" James clenched his fists, recalling the night he found Laura's hidden diary entry about a mysterious clinic visit she never told him about. James kicked the door open. The scene froze like a macabre painting. Laura reclined in a medical chair, eyes glassy, Henson holding a syringe, Conrad by a monitor displaying brain scans labeled with Laura's real name. "My God," Mark whispered, seeing his sister alive for the first time in 3 years. Henson dropped the syringe, his face shifting from shock to fury. "Security!" he shouted, reaching for an alarm. "I wouldn't," James said calmly. Ethan held up a laptop, streaming everything live. "Streaming to the DA, lawyers, state police." "Every word's live." Henson's face drained of color. "You don't understand. This is revolutionary medical research." "Stealing lives," James corrected. "Faking deaths. How much was the life insurance? $1 million? 2? Multiplied by how many subjects?" Conrad tried to bolt, but Mark blocked him. "Laura?" James called softly, kneeling beside her. "Laura, it's me." Her eyes stayed unfocused, no recognition. Henson smirked, regaining confidence. "She's gone." Sophie is who she is now. Take the body, but the woman you knew is dead. Not as dead as your career, Ethan shot back, showing Henson the shocked faces of officers watching. Or your freedom. We've got over 30 documented cases, dead people working low-profile jobs, taking your experimental drugs. Sirens wailed, closing in fast. You don't know what you're doing, Henson yelled desperately. This is bigger than us. The right people approved it. Saving innocent lives, James cut in. Yes, we can. As police stormed the clinic, James focused on Laura. He pulled a photo from his pocket, their last one with Emma, taken the morning of her death. He placed it in her hands. Emma misses you, he said softly. Our daughter. For a moment, nothing. Then something shifted in Laura's eyes, a faint spark like a distant light flickering on. Her fingers tightened on the photo. Emma, she whispered, voice hoarse. James pulled out the teddy bear Emma insisted he bring. Fred, he said, placing it in her hands. He missed you too. Laura looked at the bear, something awakening in her gaze. A tear rolled down her cheek as her fingers traced the worn fabric, love to tatters. She murmured a word, home, a fragment of memory breaking through the fog, sending a jolt of hope through James. As paramedics wheeled her to a stretcher, Laura grabbed James's hand with surprising strength. I'm lost, she murmured. Help me find my way home. Always, he promised. Henson and Conrad were cuffed, their empire of stolen lives crumbling. The live stream ensured no cover-up, no matter how powerful the players. Outside the clinic, reporters swarmed. As Laura was loaded into the ambulance, one narrated, one of the most shocking cases of medical fraud and abduction in recent history. Sources say dozens declared dead, maybe alive. James climbed into the ambulance, holding Laura's hand. The road ahead was long, uncertain, but for the first time in 3 years, he felt possibility. A future with the woman he loved, even if different from the one they'd planned. Through the window, he saw Henson's world collapse under the weight of exposed truth, leaving one haunting question. How many other Sophies were out there, living borrowed lives, while families mourned their fake deaths? 6 months later, in a quiet suburban Chicago home, James watched through the window as Laura played with Emaine in the yard. Their daughter's laughter mixed with Laura's soft voice, a melody he never thought he'd hear again. Recovery wasn't easy. The first days after the rescue were chaotic. Laura swung between moments of clarity and confusion, slipping back into Sophie. Neurologists at the recovery center explained the experimental drugs and psychological manipulation caused permanent damage in some areas. I still have gaps, Laura said one night, holding James's hand. Parts of my life just gone. But I'm finding new paths to the same memories. She showed him a sketch she'd drawn, a half-remembered image of their wedding day prove her mind was fighting to reclaim itself. Henson and Conrad's trial gripped the nation. The faked deaths case, as the press dubbed it, exposed a conspiracy far beyond Laura. 12 people had been killed and reprogrammed into new lives, all part of an experiment funded by a shadowy government division interested in mind reconfiguration tech. James kept the news clipping with the headline, Dr. Henson sentenced to 175 years, no parole. The photo showed the doctor in cuffs, his arrogant empire shattered. Conrad got a similar sentence. 6 others took plea deals for reduced time. I knew it'd be you, Laura said one afternoon, flipping through an old photo album. Even when I didn't know who I was, part of me recognized you at the diner. That's why I talked to you more. The foundation was dismantled, its assets frozen and redirected to a victims' compensation fund. The clinic, once a beacon of medical innovation, now served as a treatment center for those rescued from the program. Mark started a foundation to help identity theft victims, working with families still searching for dead loved ones. Ethan kept digging into suspect clinics, becoming an FBI consultant on a dedicated task force. One special afternoon, Laura surprised everyone by playing the piano, something Sophie never did, but Laura mastered as a child. Some things are etched beyond memory, her therapist said. In the body, the muscles, the heart. The most emotional moment came when Laura, after weeks of therapy, fully recognized Emma not as James's daughter she was relearning, but as her own. I carried you here, she told the girl, touching her stomach, and sang to you every night. Without hesitation, she sang the same lullaby James hadn't heard since before the accident. On the 4th anniversary of Laura's death, they visited the lake where her ashes were scattered. James watched as Laura tossed flowers into the water. Part of me did die here, she reflected. The person I was won't fully return, but we found our way back to each other, even through the impossible. Congressional hearings on the case continued. James testified 3 times, his story sparking a nationwide overhaul of death confirmation and cremation protocols. The case's legal ripples set precedents to be studied for decades. Know what kept me searching? James told a journalist writing a book on the case. Not just love or obsession, that first spark of doubt. I learned when something feels wrong, even when all evidence says otherwise, it's worth questioning. On the living room wall, a new family photo took pride of place. Laura, James, and Emma, smiling in their new Chicago home's garden, far from painful memories. Beside it, a small plaque with their mantra, "Truth finds its way to the light." As the sun set that summer evening, James watched his family, reunited against all odds. Nothing was like before. Laura still had tough days, moments of confusion, but they'd built a new normal on the truth uncovered. Some try to bury the truth, James thought, watching Emma show Laura her latest drawing, but even buried it finds a way to sprout and grow. The story of James, Laura, and Emma touched hearts nationwide, inspiring families to question suspicious deaths and unexplained circumstances. The deepest lesson was simple. When love is true, no science can fully erase it from the human heart. If this tale of persistence and hope against the impossible moved you, subscribe for more stories showing how truth, no matter how deeply buried, always finds its way to the light.